This is brought to you by the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, a progressive organization in the new African independence movement that cultivates revolutionary transfer culture, liberating the minds through awareness and education, protecting and training our people while fostering unity as stated in the Code of Umoja. Welcome to the George Jackson Grassroots Collective Dialogue Session.
My name is Abdullah Ghazi, National Chairman of the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, and we do have a special guest. Can you please tell us who you are, where you're from, and what kind of organization you have?
Yo, peace, 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 peace. This is Brother Tommy Joshua out of Peacetown in Philadelphia, man, and representing, man, happy to be here from the Philly Peace Park. You know what I'm saying? Salute to all the co-patriots, brothers and sisters. Much love to Chairman Ghazi, Revolutionary Forces of the Republic of New Africa, all New Africans struggling for independence. Peace. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we all know that you a real one. That's what everybody says. You one of the realest New Africans out here, especially in Philly. You have something going on, and it's called Philadelphia or Philly Peace Park. Can you go more into that and the definition of it and what's it all about?
Yes, thank you, brother. So Philly Peace Park, right? But the Philly thing is obvious. You know, we're talking about Philadelphia, right? And Philadelphia is a crucial place for us New Africans in our history, man. You know that so many of our fighters, so many of our freedom fighters come up out of Philadelphia. Not least among many is one of our founding fathers, the Honorable Amari Obadeli, was born and raised, and his brother, Gaidi Obadeli, born and raised right here in Philadelphia. Not to mention going way back to the first church, the first opportunity that New Africans was able to break off from the colonial church and worship our God, that was here in Philadelphia under the leadership of the Honorable Richard Allen. When Du Bois, Dr. Du Bois, wanted to study Black life, one of the places that he came to that gave him more than enough to consider was Philadelphia, which led to his seminal book. Some people say it was one of the first books that established the field of sociology. That was the Philadelphia Negro, you know what I'm saying? And then moving forward and moving on, man, the forerunner of the Black Panther Party, the Revolutionary Action Movement, had strong roots in addition to Cleveland and other places, but right here in Philadelphia, our Baba, Dr. Muhammad Ahmed, was born and raised right here in Philadelphia. The first protest that broke out outside of the South, bringing the great spirit of Black power to the East Coast, was right here in Philadelphia under Cecil B. Moore. And I can go on talking about the Philly part, but when we talk about the Philly part, we ain't talking about Ben Franklin, we ain't talking about William Penn, we ain't talking about the slave owners, slave masters. We're talking about Philly, you know what I'm saying? And then next you got peace. When you talk about peace, peace is the nature that all things were created in. So when we say Philly Peace Park, we mean in Philly a park, which is a place of land where people would assemble to find rest and find relaxation and find recreation and find reconciliation and find repair. We're talking about a park that's built in peace. So we call ourselves the Philly Peace Park. And the Philly Peace Park is a revolutionary land-based movement of New Africans that grows out of and gives back into the revolutionary New African independence movement. The leadership of the Peace Park are the sons and daughters, the young cadre that was brought up under the Philadelphia district here in Philadelphia. Many of us, we cut our teeth as young, wild revolutionaries of the New African Liberation Front. I myself was a close young mentee of Gjgrc, Major Abdul Aziz, Brother Hamed, who was also the former PCC chairperson. In the Philly Peace Park, we see ourselves as a modern day Maroon movement. We see ourselves right now as operating outside of the core of the national territory, but able to implement revolutionary New African nationalism through seizing land, seizing property, mobilizing our people to do the necessary work of political education and political combat with the powers that be to bring the property, to bring the land under New African leadership, and to construct from the ground up revolutionary political power that's rooted in institutions that serve the needs of the New African people. But we see this struggle here in Philadelphia, or Peacetown, as we will get into later. We see this struggle as part and parcel of the struggle of New Africans all over the world, and all over the Western Hemisphere, and all over certainly North America. And we hope that it contribute to the linking of the New African population outside of the core of the national territory. But wherever we are at, the Peace Park believe that the slogan is free the land, the struggle is to free the land, and we must build revolutionary political power within the urban neighborhoods, building off of Baba Obadeli's concept of new communities, Dr. Huey P. Newton's concept of survival programs pending revolution, and Comrade George Jackson's concept of autonomous infrastructure. So that's the Peace Park in a general sense, man. And we'll go into more specifics about how it actually look and how it actually work. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. You said a mouthful.
Yes, sir.
We most definitely about to have a good dialogue. And just by listening to you, I don't really have the preliminary questions, but I like to draw them off naturally as we dialogue.
Yes,
So
sir.
you brought up New African revolutionary nationalism. Can you please tell the people, what does that actually mean, and what does it mean to you?
Word. Well, thank you for that question, Comrade. New African revolutionary nationalism is the political ideology, I would say the dominant, the dynamic political ideology of New African people in Western Hemisphere, right? In the Western Hemisphere. When Africans were corralled by various internal traders in concert with European slavers and Arab slavers, when they were corralled from the continent of Africa, the north, the east, the south, the west, brought to the port cities and transported upon slave ships, and experiencing the most horrendous torture and terrorism and human degradation that we have ever known in the annals of history, and transported then to the so-called New World, the so-called Western Hemisphere. When these Africans from various places, various tribes, various cultures found themselves in this extreme military captivity and domination, a strange people in a strange land, over the course of our response, New African revolutionary nationalism emerged quickly as a viable, as a logical, and as a suitable response to our conditions. Later on, as we went through the process of being shaped from many different tribes and many different cultures of African people into a distinct oppressed nation within the Western world, and that can be in Jamaica, for example, or in Trinidad, the Caribbean, or even in Brazil or Colombia. All of these various European constructs or projects of colonial domination, new African people took shape. Sometimes they refer to us in certain circles of Afro descendants. These are Africans in the West. Now, when you come to the United States, a distinct new African nation certainly began to take shape. And as a nation, I mean a distinct grouping of people who share a common bloodline, a common territory upon which they inhabit, a common cultural unity, a common language, and most importantly, a common destiny, a collective existence. That was us. Now, we were a nation, and we are a nation of people, of African people, colonized here in North America by the dominant white oppressor nation under the system of imperialism. And as a nation, we have been subjugated, we have been dispersed, we have been divided, we have been under military occupation. Thus, the new African nation has been struggling from the beginning in an uneven way, but in a constant way, to free ourselves, to emerge as a independent people, recognizing that the fundamental contradiction that we face is the fact that collectively as a people, we are under foreign domination and we are denied the ability to free associate with each other, to collectively pool and enjoy the benefits of our labor, of our vision, the product of our creativity. We are artificially underdeveloped by this foreign hand. And once we can solve that contradiction, the contradiction of the fact that I can't be free as an individual as long as my brother is not free, as long as my cousin not free, as long as my woman not free, and vice versa, all down the line. We're talking about collective oppression as a nation of people. Until that contradiction is solved through independence, through breaking the chains that binds us to white domination, none of the other contradictions that we may suffer on an individual level, on a generational level, none of that can be broken. So this is where the whole understanding of free the land, of independence, of political independence come from. So that's what a new African is, my brother. A new African is essentially a African in the West with the admixture of the indigenous Black people who was here and also the indigenous red people that was here, right? Now, when you talk about, to go back to New African Revolutionary Nationalism, I would say that New African Revolutionary Nationalism as a modern phenomena, as a contemporary ideology, has three components. And I think these three components is very important. And I think that as we discuss the progress and the renaissance that the New African Independence Movement is experiencing, is be really important to kind of highlight these components. The first component of revolutionary New African nationalism is pre-Malcolm Black nationalism. Pre-Malcolm Black nationalism is a core component part of New African revolutionary nationalism. Without pre-Malcolm, revolutionary nationalism as a component, as a contribution, as a foundation, we can't talk about New African revolutionary nationalism. What am I talking about? Pre-Malcolm revolutionary nationalism, revolutionary Black nationalism, or Black nationalism. I'm talking about everything from the 1600s, from the Maroon societies that existed here in North America, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Virginia, so on and so on, in the mountains and the swamps, in the hinterlands, in the forests. These Maroon societies served as the strong basis for the organized activity that we can read about in the history books, the slave rebellions we can read about in the history books, the great leaders that spoke for abolition, for the rights of our people during enslavement. The strongholds of these struggles were the Maroon societies. Coming up even further, right, we can jump a little bit more. We had different Back to Africa movements. We had different movements that challenged the system of enslavement, all the way till you get to the great Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and his great movement, his great ideology of African universal nationalism. Keep on going from there. We got to mention the great Noble Drew Ali and his Morris science movement, right? And then we still got to keep on going, and we got to talk about the great Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his great Nation of Islam. This pre-Malcolm Black nationalist expressions, being race first, being militant, allowing for liberation theology, pointing the way and pointing us back to Africa and having a strong Pan-Africanist orientation. That is one component of what we are talking about being contemporary New African revolutionary nationalism. And moving right along, the second component that I would say that goes into revolutionary New African nationalism of today is scientific socialism. That's right. Scientific socialism is actually, in my understanding, a part of what informs revolutionary New African nationalism. We in the age right now, my brother, as you know, and as our ancestors, our immediate forefathers understood, we are under a white supremacy that operates today in the form of a capitalist and imperialist world system. That's what we are under now. That's the type of domination that we have been reared in. In fact, us as African people, we've been essential in being able to create the basis for it to be a world capitalist economy and a world capitalist system. In fact, we were the first, what they call in the scientific socialist language, the first proletariat, and I would even argue the only proletariat today, yesterday, is the Black man, woman, and child in North America and the world. So being under a capitalist imperialist system, which upholds private property, which upholds exploiting people for their labor, for their ideas, that uphold having profit, money making as the highest moral principle, that has as its also perspective, I can destroy nature, I can destroy people as long as it make money. And also having as its fundamental perspective also white supremacy, that white people, that European descent, pale, non-melanated people are superior over dark melanated people, right? All of that is the system that we're fighting for. Now, what emerged from this system is those Maroons. Now, in those Maroons, brother, my comrade, that's where the socialism come from. That was the original socialism. The original socialism was the Haitians gathering together with Boukman, with that drum, all in a circle with each other, all going in for each other. The original socialism, that was Denmark Vesey. That was Denmark Vesey and his comrades all working together for one common cause. The original socialism, that was Marcus Garvey and his great idea of Black co-ops and Black worker solidarity. The original socialism grows out of African principles. It grows out of African communalism. So then we fast forward a little bit and we get to the great Kwame Nkrumah, who informed us that scientific socialism, the second component of what I believe is revolutionary New African nationalism, it comes up out of African communalism of Ubuntu, translated by way of modern understanding and modern conditions. You know what I'm saying? So that second aspect informed revolutionary New African nationalism, that, yeah, we are fighting to free our nation, but we are also fighting against a wicked white supremacist capitalist system. And furthermore, within our revolutionary New African society, it is to be a non-capitalist society built on communitarian principles. Third aspect of revolutionary New African nationalism is the popular national culture of Black folk. The popular national culture of Black folk have always informed revolutionary New African nationalism. Our folkways, our mores, our history, our knowledge of self, our dance, our culture. I ain't talking about that which is bastardized by the imperialists. I'm talking about the real, true culture that we practice every day among ourselves, man. Our great literature, our great music, our great food, our great style. That right there also goes into revolutionary New African nationalism, because culture is something that the movement has actually struggled understanding. And revolutionary New African nationalism, it clarifies it by pointing out that the culture should and must be African in content and revolutionary in form. The culture should bring life to us. It should strengthen us as people. It should point the direction of resistance against the oppressors, and it should illuminate and brighten the road towards a better future. So in summation, my comrade, revolutionary New African nationalism, with its three components in a contemporary sense, in North American context, is the revolutionary popular ideology of the New African masses. It has as its program national liberation in North America and also in the Western Hemisphere. And it has as its content a perspective that's for a collective resolution of the economic question and to fulfill political separation and political independence as a distinct entity on the world stage among the nations of the world. Revolutionary New African nationalism in 1968, of course, it was the great Black government conference where this idea, this political program took formal state and reached its highest level of development with the declaration of New African independence and the formation of the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. Since that time, many different formations have been organizing and fighting under this idea and under this banner to free the subjugated New African nation from the clutches of domination from US imperialism and to build a sovereign, independent, national reality for our people at home and abroad that would link up and be part of the great Pan-Africanist and socialist struggles on the world stage.
You receive an A for that
Oh,
answer.
thank you, brother.
I think that would be the best articulation of that in our modern time. I would say.
Word.
With this type of knowledge that you had, you just made me think we gotta take this back some. We gotta rewind time a little bit right now.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
take this back to when you was a kid. Who taught you? Who gave you this knowledge? And when was you a part of this movement? Can we go from there?
Yeah, yo, so I grew up in North Philly. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in North Philly. I grew up low income. I ain't really understand it as being low income because everybody was low income. I thought it was pretty dope. I thought it was pretty dope. I just didn't like going to school, but outside of going to school, everything was lovely. You know what I'm saying? And I grew up when the crack era was like full swing. And that was something, you know what I'm saying? When I was young, the kids used, I remember my homie, he said, "You're a racist." My homie denounced me, yo, because I said I wouldn't date a white girl. You know, we was talking. It was like 10, 12, like young boys, man. We was talking and somebody said, "Oh yeah, white girl." And I said, "I ain't dating no white girl." And he looked at me like I was crazy. He looked at me like I was out my damn mind. And my homie, my man, he stepped off from me from on that afternoon, Comrade Ghazi. He stepped off on me. He said, "You're a racist." And he left me. He stepped off. He went in the house. I mean, of course, we might have linked back up like an hour later around the corner, but he linked me up. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't get it. I was like, damn, he said I'm a racist. Like, shit. Now, I grew up in a household that had a lot of respect for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. My uncle, Terry Allah, he was my enlightener. He was a Muslim under the first resurrection of the Nation of Islam. So he will always come and teach me and my brother knowledge of self. He will always come and teach us. And then at a certain point, man, he said, "Yo, come here, let me show you something." And he showed me the letter. He said, "Yo, check this out, yo. There's a black man who wrote the Klan and who wrote the Klan and had dialogue with the Klan." I said, "Huh?" And he showed me the John and I read it. And it was like, "Dear nigger, yeah, you may be trying to do something for your people, but I ain't doing that," and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, ain't that something? Now I kept on turning the pages. And then I got to the journal. It was like, yeah, dear Grand Wizard. This is Elijah Muhammad, messenger of Allah. And I'm just going to tell you that, you know, the 22 million Negroes is not afraid of you anymore. And in fact, we know who you are. You are the devil. And we are going forward to establish to get land of our own. And it blew my mind, y'all. It blew my mind. And that opened me up. I would have to give credit to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by way of my uncle to open me up. And then later on, Comrade, of course, man, like I was just a regular young person in the streets in Philadelphia, getting in trouble. Thankful to God that I never got caught up as some of my comrades did. And eventually, when I was in high school, I had an opportunity to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? Now, mind you, my mother, she was a Jehovah's Witness. So keep in mind, comrade, like we read a lot. One thing about Jehovah's Witnesses, people clown them, but when you see a Black Jehovah's Witness, just know that you're dealing with someone that has a strong literacy rate. A Black Jehovah's Witness family, they read, brother. They organize. So when I was with my mom, we organizing. We out in the streets organizing. Also, too, man, just to keep it, you know what I'm saying? I'm glad you asked the question. And to give the listeners just a little insight. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you taught that ain't no saluting to the flag because only God deserves to be saluted. You also were taught that all these holidays that the white man got ain't nothing but pagan holidays. So we don't celebrate no Christmas. Jehovah's Witness don't celebrate no damn Halloween, no Thanksgiving. So look, all of this matches up with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that I'm learning. You know what I'm saying? And we in the hood, right? So we got the Malcolm influence. You know, I'm already a racist, as my man told me. He denounced me. And then I read Malcolm. And you know how when you read Malcolm, you're like, yo, I want to be Malcolm. Like, you like, that's what it is. I got to be Malcolm. You like, yo, that's what I was looking for. You know what I'm saying? And from there, man, long story short, man, I started to, I was like a Black nationalist youth here in Philadelphia. And in the time I grew up in the 90s when I was doing my thing. It was a low ebb of revolutionary struggle. The national bourgeoisie, which is the Black elite, were dominating our radical or progressive discourse. You know what I'm saying? I got love for Minister Farrakhan, you know what I'm saying, the Nation of Islam. But as a class force, they represent the national bourgeoisie, which is a class within our nation, but it's not the working class, the majority of us. You know what I'm saying? I was from the working class. So at the time, it wasn't no revolutionary organizations, Conrad. It wasn't a Chairman Ghazi that I could link with, man. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that in the 90s. And it wasn't until 1998, I hung out as a young man. I took my Shahada and became a Sunni Muslim. That you know what I mean? I had my Allah chain. And I was looking for knowledge, and I was in all the masjids trying to find the old Panthers and trying to find the old Garveyites. You know what I'm saying? I went to the Garvey Institution when I was about 15, became a member of the UNIA, man. It was just laboring in the UNIA as a young boy. In 1998, somehow, some way, I heard about Gjgrc 98. And Gjgrc 98 was the political prisoner national rally, and I was about 17 in 98. You know what I'm saying? I'm 44, man. You know what I'm saying? Me and my comrades, man, I took my girl, I had my little girlfriend, man. She was right with me. She was on some nationalist Muslim type tip the way I was on. My man, he was with me. You know what I'm saying? We went from being in the streets, you know what I mean, to being on this type wave. And we all went. We found some tickets. It was a bus going down there. And this is when I met Brother Hamid. I met Brother Hamid in 1998, y'all, as a young Black nationalist Muslim youth, looking hungry, you know what I'm saying? And that trip was pivotal, going to DC. I met the Uhuru movement. I seen the Burn and Spare newspaper, you know what I'm saying? I seen Nation Time newspaper. I met Baba Herman Ferguson, you know what I'm saying? I got introduced to Dr. Khalid Muhammad, you know what I'm saying? And then I also was able to get plugged into the organizations in Philadelphia, and I started to organize as a young man around New Black Panther Party circles. And then also I was moving with Baba Hamid, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna tell you about what Baba Hamid and them did. So we were on some wave, Comrade, that like, since it was no revolutionary organizations, we felt like we were going to have to create one for the young people. Because when I did link with the movement, it was all old heads. It was no young people that we can really find. So we had an idea that we were going to form like a youth movement. We was going to build our own thing, and try to figure it out ourselves, because we figured like, if we in the hood all day and it ain't no revolutionary movement where we were at in the hood, why should we even join any of these organizations? So what happened is we was like, all right, we're gonna form our own thing. So we formed our own little formation at the time. But Baba Hamid and Baba Khalid, and Baba Alugaba, these are some of the elders who were there at the time. They didn't try to recruit us, show. They just was feeding us. They just was feeding us. Because when I think back on it now, they let us form our organization. They let us have our own little meetings. We had our own little publication. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I respect that, because by the time he did come to recruit me, he already fed me so well. I already had the knowledge. I already was ready to run. I was ready to move with him. You know what I'm saying? So I respect him on that. And then also too, Conrad, I gotta say hip hop. Hip hop. You know what I mean? My family, these experiences that I talked about, but then hip hop, hip hop. You know what I mean? I was listening to KRS One. I was listening to Ice Cube, Death Certificate. I was listening to Public Enemy. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to Brand Nubian. I was linking up with the Five Percenters, the Nation of Gods and Earths. I was running into people who I would talk to them and they'd be like, oh yeah, brother, you're a follower of Dr. York. I'd be like, who Dr. York? You know what I'm saying? They were like, let me pitch you on. So I was out there, man, in the late 90s. As a young man coming up in the 2000s, I was out there moving, studying, getting educated, all that good stuff, Conrad. So, thank you for allowing me to go at length about that. But it just come from just being a child of the Black working class, from an early age, having the Nation of Islam influence, being fortunate enough to have elders, different circles, yo. At one point, like I linked up with old school Black communists, you know what I'm saying? And even though like I had disagreements with some of their ideology, I still was soaking up what they had to teach. So people like Tony Montero, and others here in Philadelphia. He was an old Communist Party USA boy. He put me onto a bunch of stuff. But just really, man, being out here, organizing, making mistakes, studying, learning, never stop learning, trying to practice. All of that, Conrad, is what gave me the knowledge, some knowledge, a little bit of knowledge, and has helped me to do a little bit of practice. But I'm still learning every day. And I'm appreciative of whatever I know, sharing it with my brothers and sisters so that we can better ourselves as a collective.
Yes, sir. Very good answer. Um, I will have to bring up one thing now that you're
Yes, sir.
more mature. Now that you're more mature and you understand, you did more research. And when your friend brought up that you was racist,
Yeah.
just because of you saying that you're not dating a white woman, can you please break down what racism is, what is being racist is? And I would like for you to talk about the importance of the Black family.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The racist is the white man. The racist is the white man. It's the white European man. It's the unoriginal man. It's the contrary man on this planet. Him, his culture, his civilization, his system. They call it capitalism. They call it imperialism. That's the racist. He's the racist. The racist is the white man, who enforces a reality of permanent genocide and permanent aggression against the original man, against the oppressed nations, against the indigenous population. I'm talking about the Black people. Racism is not necessarily, nigga, I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Like I can give the great Kwame Ture said, man, if the white boy don't like me, that's his problem. But if the white boy don't like me and can then kill me because he don't like me, that's sure my problem. So racism would be the latter. It would be the system of racial envy that allows for white people to use the ideology or the ideas of the great Dr. Francis Quest Wilson. The fact that they are an unmelanated minority, an unnatural group of people, to use the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, a grafted people on this planet, a grafted minority, and that would drive them then to try to set up a system of artificial domination over us. So that's what racism is. Racism is the discrimination of white people through their systems, through their institutions against original people. Now, what is love for self? Being race first and love for self is not no racism. Having love for self, having love for our skin, having love for our culture, having love for our style, having love for our swag, having love for our history. That is, as the great Marcus Garvey said, a badge of national greatness. So when I said, when I was so disgusted when my homie said they was going crazy over the white girls, and when I said, man, I ain't dating no white girl, I was expressing the greatness of African people. That's what I was doing, and that's what I was about. And I was being on some race first stuff, love for self and appreciation for self, which is revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that's what racism is, the ideology and system of white supremacy. And our struggle touches upon struggling against racism. But our main thrust of our struggle is a struggle against national oppression, of imperialist oppression that is rooted in notions of white supremacy. But our struggle is not to simply get rid of white people's negative perception of ourselves. We want to get rid of white people's material reality of control and violence over our day-to-day life. That's what we want to do. So our enemy is flesh and blood. Our enemies is steel and wood. The steel and wood and the flesh and blood is animated by ideas. But yeah, we want to change the minds, but we want to transform the relationship between us and them. We want to drive them away from us, and we want to recover our physical space. We want to recover our resources, and we want to recover the sovereignty of our people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ashe. But
Ashe.
I want to bring up one thing. You say the word culture a lot. I hear it a lot within our dialogue. Culture, 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 culture. Um, what would be the importance at this time for a cultural revolution? And what does cultural revolution mean to you?
Yo, culture is the most important question of a revolution. And unless we establish a culture, a revolutionary culture, the revolution is doomed to counter revolution. Culture is something permanent. Movement leads to culture. Activities is something temporary. Activities is where things start at. Actually, thinking, ideas where things start at, then the thinking moves to activities, then activities move to motion or movement, and then movement leads to culture. But when you get to the level of culture, you have self-perpetuating behaviors that gives a people life, meaning, direction, location, and agency within the framework of the world. So what we are all striving to do is establishing a revolutionary new African culture. And now I just remember, Comrade, it links back to the question, the second part of your question, your previous question. Culture starts at the level of the family. The family is the most fundamental unit of a society. So in revolutionary new African nationalist thought, when we look at a society, unlike Marxist thought, European Marxist thought. European Marxist thought holds that class is the fundamental unit within a society. They believe that the fundamental basis of how society is organized is based off of class. And then they believe that if you study or if you transform the class situation, you can affect the revolution. But how we see it as the fundamental unit is the man and the woman, and the man and the woman and the child. That's the fundamental unit. And where things went wrong at in a society was not necessarily people starting to exploit classes of people in relationship to their production and their distribution. Where things actually went wrong in a society is the loss of mayat among the man and the woman within society. So just like the origin of society is within the relationship between a man and a woman and a child, so shall the revolution and the solution of the problems of society is within a man, a woman, and a child. Culture starts inside the home. It starts in the relationship of one to another. And if that relationship between one to another, specifically the man and the woman, the black man and the black woman, when that relationship is established on a healthy, dynamic, harmonious, and just because it's harmony don't mean it's contradiction. Harmonious just mean that it reinforces each other, it resolves each other, it complements each other, it makes sense to move things forward with each other. When that relationship is established on that basis, a synthesis happens between the genius of the black man and the black woman and the black child. And then that from that household evolves a set of principles, it evolves a worldview, it evolves a style, it evolves a belief system that we call culture. And as families then form tribes, and as tribes form nations, eventually you have what's called a national culture. That is the permanent mode of thought, worldview, and behavior, which gives a people direction, which gives a people clarity, which gives a people location, and which gives a people agency. Our task is to see how we can develop, first of all, reactivate revolutionary activities inside the Black nation. Then work to link together the revolutionary activities into organizations, and then work to link the organized activity or organizations into a movement. Once you get to the level of a movement, you can then start to create change. Once you start to create change, you are now in a revolutionary process. But without moving from having a movement, you can create revolutionary processes. But until culture is established, that means that the things that the activity sought to create are now permanently implanted into the babies and translated where? In the family, from mother to child, from father to mother, from mother to father. Once that actually takes place, then you can actually have a revolutionary society. Then all the activity, then all the movement can be consolidated, can be defended. We want a revolutionary culture. We want to embrace our African essence of how we do things as new Africans, as African people. And we want to combine that with all the latest flavor and all the new contemporary dopeness of Blackness. And we want to harness that to achieve the highest objective, which is the freedom and independence of our people, the political independence, the emergence on a basic fundamental level as a new African nation under the red, the black, the green, or under the red, the green, the black here in North America, so that we can finally start to breathe some air, we can finally start to drink some water, and we can finally start to love on each other the way we really want to. We need permanent revolutionary culture. We need to find a way to make the activity part and parcel of the everyday life of the people, to make it automatic, just like the white people got. They got a white supremacy, reactionary, fascist culture. They birth fascists. And they, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, they are devils. This means that they live under the reality of a devilish culture. Their culture, their permanent self-automatic day-to-day behavior that gives them meaning is based on wickedness, is permanent. We have to establish and we have to free the new African culture.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have many questions, many questions to ask you. So, yeah, this is gonna be a little bit over an hour if you got time.
I appreciate the opportunity, Comrade.
Yes, sir. And just for transparency, this is a dialogue session. Even though we have this right now, we have other ones as well. So we always check up on our comrades and we continue to dialogue, every other, quarterly or whatever. So this ain't gonna be the last one. But you brought up a real good topic. You brought up a real good thing. You said reactivate revolutionary activities.
Mhm.
Reactivate revolutionary activities. And to be honest, that's why we're here right now. That's why we're dialoguing. That's why we're showing the people what I always say, transfer culture. Um, and my definition of that is a cultural transformation of the values, practices, and relationships of a people, which prepares conditions and revolution against the dominant oppressor nation. Transfer culture also provides a rationale dynamic or calculation within the development strategy of revolution. It
Mhm.
uproots and destroys the old oppressive rationale and mindset of colonial society and introduces new values which move the people outside of the colonial mindset and onto that of the emerging revolutionary society. Could you
Yes,
please go a little bit deeper into transfer culture?
brother, that's a beautiful concept and a beautiful definition that correctly explain the process of building a revolutionary culture, transfer from the current artificial reality that the enemy seek to place upon our subjugated nation, but transferring the real true essence of who we are and what we need and what we want over to the new society. One popular way that transfer culture has always been expressed is to turn the gun the other way, right? Turn the gun the other way, turn the gun to the other person, stop killing and harming and shooting a person that is your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, who is a victim of the same dog who bit us all, and turn the gun and shoot the dog. That's an example of transfer culture. Another example is transforming the criminal mentality to a revolutionary mentality. Being in the hells of North America, us new Africans have been forced to scramble and struggle and hustle, and we picked up some skills and by way of doing that. Unfortunately, the way that they got it set up, when we may engage in criminal activity, we end up only harming our own people, and we wind up being trapped. That's why they call it the trap. We wind up being tricked, and we end up incarcerated, or we end up in the morgue, or we end up placing our brothers and sisters in a morgue. But when you transform the skills, the mentality, the militancy, um, such as people like Comrade George Jackson and folks like Bunchy Carter and people like Omar Ali Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X. So many of our great revolutionaries were living examples of transfer culture, and they were able to leave that which they were forced into as a colonial subject and take from what they learned and actually put that and apply that to the struggle for freedom and independence. So even with the tool of hip hop is another African art form, which when it emerged, eventually and quickly became a popular expression of Black national consciousness. And the most popular rappers within the genre was called The Teacher. And the most, one of the groups that was selling the highest amount of records was a group called Public Enemy that was preaching rebellion. And one of the rappers or lyricists who was the top, most highly respected lyricist was a student of Clarence 13X. And he was teaching that the Black man is God and teaching a form of Islam, and this was what the culture was in our hands. But what happened? The enemy used a counter transfer culture, in which they then took hip hop and transformed it into a tool that speaks and that operates today directly against our national interests. It disrespects our men, it disrespects our women, is in league with the corporate white supremacist interests that now promotes drill music, thought music, all type of nonsense to further victimize and further miseducate and misdirect the Black community, while at the same time drawing billions of dollars of profits or revenue, right? But hip hop is still not dead, and we still must utilize revolutionary hip hop culture to promote ideals of Black nationalism, of Pan-Africanism, of solidarity, of race first pride. You know what I'm saying? So the concept of transfer culture is absolutely correct. We must take the essence of who we are and our true interests and reject the colonial reality, the colonial bogus culture that's been placed on us, and establish new values. I love that definition, Comrade. New values that will lead us into a new revolutionary society.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good answer. Um, you brought up a couple times, and we always ask on the show, George Jackson. What does George Jackson mean to you in the autonomous aim infrastructure as we go back into the community?
George Jackson was a beautiful, beautiful brother and leader. You know, he represent all of us in his life and in his life's journey. There's something that each and every one of us today, in the larger New African nation, but especially in the New African independence movement, is something that each and every one of us can find to admire and can find to identify with. You know, as a young man, growing up, like me and like you, Comrade, growing up from the Black working class, you know, he grew up in California. And, you know, he had an honest mother and an honest father who tried their best to provide for him, his brother, and his sister. But just like our parents and many other New African parents, man, no matter how much we and they try to put food on the table, to put clothes on the back, and to try to shield us from what they know is coming as youth, they try to shield us from that. This reality of national oppression will always find a way to allure our sons and our daughters into a life of self-destruction. And then as a young man, beautiful man child, like many of us, man, he was in the streets a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He's just doing what he do. I mentioned in my childhood, man, I could have easily ended up with an unfair sentence from a fascist judge, from a anti-Black monster in a robe. And that's what happened with George Jackson. He was railroaded at a young age. You know what I mean? He with his partner is robbing the store, and it just so happened he was in the car. They get locked up. Some people say his man was playing a little funny, but the judge messed around and going to give him an outrageous sentence of 1 year to life. 1 year to life, this young man. And because when George Jackson when he hit the block, because of eventual his voracious intellect and also his principled association with revolutionaries such as the Honorable W.L. Nolan, that 1 year to life eventually became a death sentence. But in the prison, George Jackson became a defender of the weak, even though he was in the prisons. George Jackson was a example that no matter where we are at as New Africans, they can never separate us from the struggle of our people. No steel, no prison guards, no concrete, no roads. None of that could stop George Jackson from hearing the footsteps, the heartbeats of his people. So he began to organize inside the prisons at the same time, linking up with the revolutionaries on the outside. At the same time this was happening, the Black Panther Party was formed. And the Black Panther Party began a new phase of our struggle, a militant phase. And these revolutionaries was coming into prison quick, and they linked up with the revolutionaries that was inside the prison. And George Jackson eventually emerged as a exemplary man, a man that we all as men can identify with, a man who developed his body through training and through discipline, but most importantly, a man who developed his mind. George Jackson would love to be on this conversation with us because he was about revolutionary ideology. He chastised his comrades that, like, yo, being a warrior is not enough. You got to be a thinking warrior. George Jackson's books that he read, that he studied revolutionary ideology. He studied Black history, anything he can get on Black history, anything. He studied African history. He studied Asian history. He studied Latin American history. He studied European history. George Jackson wasn't immune, and he wasn't myopic enough to not to look at the cascading revolutionary struggles across the world. Mao Zedong in China, Kim Il-sung in North Korea, Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. You know what I'm saying? Frantz Fanon in Algeria. You know? He looked at Marx, he looked at Engels, he looked at Trotsky. He studied the Cuban Revolution. He studied economic theory. He studied political systems. He studied military history, white history, Black history, Chinese military history. He studied reality. He studied the people. He was forging himself into a soldier. He joined the organization. He joined the Black Panther Party. He met Comrade Newton, and they embraced, and they found that they were brothers, man. And he became a field marshal in the struggle. And from the jail cell, he waged resistance and he waged revolution. He moved in the tradition of Nat Turner. He moved in the tradition of Harriet Tubman. He moved the way he supposed to have moved. And because of his struggles and his sacrifice within the bowels of the hells of North America, one thing George Jackson will always say, man, I'm going to show and I'm going to prove, yo, that ain't no prison that can hold my revolutionary soul. He said, this genocide shit that y'all pulled on the Jews, and y'all, they said 6 million of them is gone in the ovens. He said, no, I'm going to prove that ain't going to be us. He said, I'm going to prove, man, that we're going to be a unified revolutionary movement inside the prisons and outside the prisons. And because of his stance and because of his contribution through exemplary political, ideological, theoretical development of the Black Panther Party at the time, because of his awesome literary skills, because of his organizational genius that extend from prison to prison, but also into the streets, our brother George Jackson was martyred, but without taking with him a whole bunch of pigs and a whole bunch of snitches. Dr. Huey P. Newton said, George Jackson is my superhero. He's my superhero because of how he lived his life, what he stood for, and what he died for. Because he didn't go out as no punk, he didn't go out as no sucker. He went out taking many more of them out. But he left to us, though, all of that legacy. He left to us 2 great books. One of them is Soul Dad Brothers, which is a great, heart-touching autobiography and memoir, which also contains some very important political thoughts. But he also left us a great book, a great piece of literature, a great handbook for new African revolutionaries. Some real sharp science that not too many can get with and not too many fully appreciate. And I'm talking about none other than Blood on My Eye. And it's an honor to the comrades that formed the George Jackson grassroots movement, because there's not a more honorable, a more politically advanced, and a more important African freedom fighter in the hells of North America than the Honorable George Jackson. So we love George Jackson. His life is instructive to us. We continue to move with his spirit. We continue to move with his instructions, and his work bestows to the New African Independence Movement a wealth of strength, a wealth of imagination, and a wealth of vision. So we love George Jackson. And to bring it all back to the Peace Park operates under his vision of where the enemy has left voids. We as revolutionary must bring substance. We must build the central city commune. We must build the institutions upon which not only the revolutionary forces can launch an assault against the oppressive power structure, but a revolutionary infrastructure that can meet the needs of our people by way of food, shelter, clothing. This infrastructure, organized and defended by revolutionaries, can serve as the basis not only to grow the movement, but also the backbone of a new society. So we feel like George Jackson was articulating the modern day revolutionary concept of maroonage. We must build self-reliant, independent communities which rest on new revolutionary institutions, new food systems, new security forces, new representative democratic governance structures, new economic systems based off co-ops, and a transfer culture, which can move our people from the current state of their existence into the future, which is liberation, independence, and freedom under our own sovereign, independent, socialist nation.
Yes, sir. That answer was so good. I most definitely do not want to ask you anymore. There will have to be a part two, part three, part four. We can't give them everything, Comrade. We can't give them everything. But we could give you our everything, and we do want to give you everything, but we gotta let y'all soak some of this in. You know, we gotta let people study a little bit and soak some of this in. So one thing I want to ask is how can we support you, brother? What type of donations? What's your website? What can we do to support you and look you up, Comrade?
Okay, man, I appreciate it, brother Ghazi. I had such a good time talking to an airlight, man, and I appreciate this platform, man, that you comrades got going, man. It's beautiful to allow us to come and share. But look, y'all can all, first of all, man, if y'all can make it, man, come to Philly. Come to Philly, man. Come to the Maroon. Come to your Maroon, man, and come see what we doing, and come be with the people of Peacetown. Come get some of these good vegetables that we growing out of New African soil. Come swing a hammer with us, man. We building a 2,000 square feet school for our children here, and we about 65% complete. We got a whole block, man, that we hold in a whole city block from tip to tip, man, that we done seized and is developing a struggle for local political power over it, man. But please follow our social media. I can keep, we do have a website, man, but we don't really got folks that can keep the website up. I'm gonna keep it a bean with you. The website is just to have a website. But if you really want to see what's going on, I would say come into Philly, man. Get at us on slop in our DM. But if you go to our social media, particularly Instagram, you can see some of the work. You can see some of the programs and whatnot. One of the most important things we got right now, comrades, is that we're trying to raise $50,000, y'all. $50,000. We need 50 stacks. Why we need 50 stacks is because once we get this school set up, we're going to take that 50 stacks, comrade. We're going to chop that thing up. We're going to chop it up into some nice little pieces. And then we're going to take them nice little pieces, and I need to get these talented educators. I need to pull them away from the colonial school. And I can't give them what the white man can give them. I can give them more than that, though. But I can definitely give them a little piece of that 50,000. And we want to have enough money to be able to do at least 2 years of paying our teachers and paying our educators to administer the school. So if you go to our Instagram at North Philly Peace Park, and if you click on our link tree or tree link, whatever it's called, You will see a link that says donate to our fundraiser, our 2004 fundraiser. And you'll see that we got some videos and we got some nice words and stuff to try to get people to donate, man. But the bread will help, you know what I'm saying? Because one thing about us is that we don't rely on grants. That's not like our perspective, to rely on grants, to rely on any type of handouts in that way. If we can get some grants, we will look at it as like reparation bread. But to be honest with you, in Philadelphia, ain't nobody trying to finance new Africans that don't got their head bowed, that's not pushing no agendas that's against our culture, that's taking over buildings, that's preaching new African independence. So the only way really that we can finance ourselves is from, at this time, is from businesses that we form, you know what I'm saying? We do marketplaces, and also your donations and your help, yo. But brother Ghazi, man, I love y'all, man. Salute to the comrades, yo. I hope to see you all. I hope to be back before you again in this dialogue, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And let me just throw a monkey wrench in. We
Okay.
can do that because we revolutionaries.
Yes,
We
sir.
can just change stuff up real quick. Um, let's add one more final statement in here, and I got a final question for you.
Yes, sir.
It's 2024, and a lot of people do a lot of social media revolution. I call it virtual world revolution. And
Yeah,
what I mean by that is that they just they do just enough to get sensationalism off of being a revolutionary, likes and shares or whatever. But
right.
how important is it to actually get physical and actually link with comrades and put boots to ground, and also sacrifice just a little bit of donations, because a lot of people's wasting money on a lot of things. Why you can't waste money on a I mean, not waste, but
Yeah,
donate to a good cause, and nobody's asking that much. And if you can't do that, why you can't get out there and help us,
right.
what is your statement to the people who has these RBG flags, who have all these flags and say free the land or black power? What is your message to these people of accountability? What is your message?
Well, look, we gonna hit these our folk, with that transfer culture. We love y'all, but there's a lot of fake ass revolutionaries out here now. But because we got transfer culture, you can switch it up. You know what I'm saying? Me and Comrade Ghazi, we got a way out for y'all. It's very true, man, that there's a lot of clout. There's a lot of clout organizing. A lot of clout organizing, yo. People be organizing just to take a picture of the joint. They don't be part of no organizations. They don't be no boots on the ground. One thing I love about you, Comrade Ghazi, is that you on the ground. Your comrades is on the ground. They all over the country. Every time I was among y'all, man, it was something productive, whether we in the national territory trying to figure things out, or we huddling up trying to figure out how we can communicate, how we can, yeah, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So I love that. And I mean, real work, real work. You know what I'm saying? And on the basis of the real work, it's only right to utilize modern communication, to use social media to try to galvanize it. But you got people that's the opposite, man. You got folks that is on some fake revolutionary shit, y'all. And I feel for y'all that's on some fake revolutionary shit. You know what I'm saying? I feel for y'all. That's why we're gonna offer y'all a way out. We're gonna offer y'all a way out by way of encouragement that it's not enough to just don't get caught up with just being online or just having the look. Because in Philly, you got that. You just got some folks that just be on the look. They look like they revolutionaries, you know what I'm saying? But Huey P. Newton wrote a very important essay called The Correct Handling of a Revolution. And what he pointed out is that the face-to-face relationship between revolutionaries is the principal aspect of the party. He said, unless revolutionaries have a face-to-face relationship, meaning that they get to know each other, get with each other, able to see each other, you know what I'm saying? Feel each other's spirit and, ultimately establish organizational ties with each other. Without that, we can't really say that we are really like an active, you know what I'm saying, whatever though. So what we're going to do is, man, we're going to encourage people and let them know that finally there is revolutionary organizations and there is revolutionary institutions that you can verify, that you can check out, that you can see, that you could touch. You can link up with the revolutionary forces of the Republic of the Republic of New Africa, because they all over. Brother Ghazi is moving all over. You can support the efforts, you know what I'm saying? Even if you support the efforts by watching the videos, sharing the videos, you know what I'm saying? If you're serious about revolution and you're serious about seeing our people free, and maybe you can't get out the house because of whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe you don't got a lot of money, but I'm gonna tell you, that share will help us. It will help the real ones. You inside your city, finding a Black organization that is trying to do something around some of the issues that affect our people, getting involved, going out to that meeting, helping and supporting that institution. It's so much stuff that be happening that you may see on your timeline. What about going out and getting involved? What about sending and sliding up in one of our DMs and saying, look, how can I get down? How can I click up? What about donating? When you see the real revolutionaries saying, hey, we got this Cash App, hit it up, or we got this GoFundMe, hit it up. Give that money, give that paper, y'all. You know what I'm saying? So nah, we going to transfer culture, all of that. 2024, 2025, heading on. Only real revolutionaries linking up, only actually building, moving state to state, building autonomous infrastructure, building up the independent institutions, developing the movement to be a culture. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I would like to end by saying this myself. I'd like to thank you for having you on here, and I'm giving you your flowers now, comrade. I see you out there. You're most definitely knowledgeable and articulate in the movement, and I most definitely want to build with you in Philadelphia, help you in your endeavors or whatnot, and let's continue to build, and let's build to win, free the land.
By any means necessary, brother. I love you, comrade.
I love.